Well, Father Vernie, thank you very much for your welcome. It's a great pleasure to be back at Manresa. Very happy memories of the other three retreats given here. And I think as we gather this evening, I was thinking it's a little like a group of people setting off on a cruise. We are going to be sharing a journey together. We'll be getting to know each other even more intimately as we move into the silence of the retreat. That might seem a little paradoxical to you at first, the idea that we can come closer to each other through silence, but some of you will not be surprised at that, and the others of you who might be a little skeptical, I hope will discover that it's a very real truth of our human journey. We communicate with words and with all different forms of language, but the goal of communication is really communion. And I think in the silence we enter into communion. So we begin to form a community this evening, and that's why we'll begin our week of silence together with meditation. But silence is not only the absence of words or of language. Silence means more than that. Silence is the quality of attention, it's the quality of presence that we bring to what we're doing and to who we're with. So we will be sharing some thoughts and reflections together during the retreat. But I'd like to encourage you to brace yourself and to immerse yourself in the silence that we will begin later this evening. This silence is a rare experience and a rare gift in the modern world, to be able to take time in a big city especially, although in the beautiful grounds of Manresa here, but to take a significant period of time to explore the meaning of silence and the nature of silence, and to benefit from that is a rare gift for any of us. And it's a gift that each of us here individually will find, I hope. It's personal. And that means more than individual. An individual, we come here from a very individualistic society, as consumers, each with our own social security number, and each with our own health problems, and each with our own personal agendas, and each with a very strong sense of individuality because of the culture that we've been reared in. But we are more than consumers, and we're more than mere individuals. We are persons. That's our divine nature, it's our divine meaning. And persons are people in relationship, or beings in relationship, in conscious relationship. And consciousness is what makes life alive. It's what makes relationships human and meaningful. So we will be in relationship in the silence. It's a personal experience, and because it's personal, it is a responsibility. It's something we are responding to and are co-responsible for. So the silence that we will experience, we will enjoy. Maybe some moments you may be challenged by it, depending on where you're coming from at this moment. You may drink it thirstily and relish it, but even so, maybe occasionally you may find it challenging. But I'd urge you to think about it not just as an individual experience, but as a communal or personal shared experience. And therefore, we take responsibility together for the silence we share. And so if you do need to talk or as Father Bernie said, go out and shout at the top of your voice. Try to do it in a way that doesn't disturb the silence of others. The quality of silence, as I said, is really comes down to the quality of attention. Being able to maintain your attention with the least amount of distraction, that's the contemplative nature of our retreat. And so the fewer distractions there are, the better. We've come to, you can't be without some distractions in life, but the fewer distractions there are, the better. And so if we can try to avoid distracting each other by unnecessary speaking or noise, we will be really loving each other. We will be entering into a community that I think we will experience and understand more and more as a loving, Christ-centered community. And all of that might sound a big promise to make, but I think if we are open to that, it is indeed what we will experience through the silence. This evening what I'd like to do is, before we get into the theme of, which is God, which is the meaning of God and our understanding of God in the light of meditation, this evening I'd like to just prepare us a little bit for the retreat and also share with you an introduction to meditation. Some of you, I know, have been meditating for many years, and those of you who have found that grace of building meditation into your daily lives on a regular basis, and you probably have discovered it to be a grace, it's a gift. If you put meditation into your morning and into your evening, day by day, as you slipped into that, one day you realized perhaps that it had become part of your life, and that your life was blessed and enriched and continually stimulated by that practice. And if you have got into daily meditation, then I think you will understand better than anyone why it's a good idea to hear an introduction to it. I remember years ago meeting an Indian ambassador at the time to Italy, I think, and he was very scholarly, kind of diplomat, and quite a scholar of Indian philosophy and the Indian scriptures. And he told me that he went back to India every, he was at the end of his career when I met him. He said he went back to his guru in India every year, made a month-long retreat at the ashram, and he would begin his retreat by asking his teacher, "Can you teach me to meditate?" And I think if you do meditate, you realize that we are always learning. It is a learning journey. It's a way of discipleship, a way of discipline, and that word, the word that lies behind both of those words, disciple and discipline, is dishere, which means to learn. It's a learning journey. To be a disciple is to be learning. To practice a discipline is because we want to learn better. So, some of you may have started to meditate maybe more than once, and you've given up, or your practice is a little erratic, and you do it for a few days or a few weeks at a time, or you do it once a day, and then somebody comes to stay, or you go on holiday, and your routine is upset, and you find that you've lost the thread, you've lost the rhythm of meditation, and then you come back to it again in a few weeks or months or whatever. And perhaps there are some people here for whom this is quite new, at least new in this way. And in a real sense, it doesn't matter as we begin the retreat into which of those categories you might like to put yourself, a regular meditator or an irregular meditator or a non-meditator or an aspirational meditator, because the nature of meditation itself is simple, and it's always about returning to the source. It's always about being a beginner. And that's why meditation has such a powerful effect in our lives, on our minds, and on our spiritual journey. Because it takes us back to the source. Yesterday I was in Houston, and in the early morning I was doing my emails, and I was communicating with an ex-prisoner who had started here in the States, who had started to meditate some years ago while he was serving a long sentence, actually, in a prison in Northern California. And I had met him there, and he'd been part of a group that one of our local meditators had run very faithfully for a number of years. And going to that meditation group in this awful place, which, if you've ever been to one of those high security prisons, you wonder really what the logic of them is, because they are both corrupt and corrupting. There must be better ways of dealing with these issues. In any case, I would go to the meditation group there from time to time, and it was always for me a blessing, it was a grace, because perhaps it was because of the sharp contrast of the inhumanity and the potential violence in the air, the lack of the suspicion and the lack of trust and the coldness and the institutionalism of it all. When we meditated together, when this group of prisoners came together to meditate, for me it was a manifestation of the kingdom of God. And it was a taste of this communion that I was speaking about earlier. Anyway, this prisoner, Russ, came out on parole about a year or so ago, and struggling to get back onto his feet with very little help from the authorities. And I had received him as an oblate in the community of the world community, a Benedictine oblate of the world community, while he was in prison. And when he came out of prison and he found that he had difficulty getting a job and struggling, I suggested that he write a commentary on the rule of Saint Benedict. And there are several commentaries, many commentaries over the last 1500 years on the rule of Saint Benedict. And to be honest, I suggested it to him thinking that it would be something to keep him busy, or give him a goal, work to do. When he sent me the manuscript some time ago, I was really astonished at the depth and the maturity and the wisdom of the work he had done, and we'll be helping him to get it published by a major publisher soon. So I was talking with him about the book and publishing possibilities, and thinking of the hardships that he'd gone through, and how his discovery of meditation had taken him through the hardest time in his life, and was continuing to help him adapt and to life on the outside. Not an easy task. And an hour or so after finishing that email, I went to the elementary school attached to the church in the parish where I was staying, and I said Mass for the school, and the 8th grade were graduating, and I introduced them at the parish priest's request to meditation, and we meditated for a few minutes after the communion. And I was not surprised. One never really knows what the response is going to be, but I wasn't surprised by the response of these children, from 5 till, to 8th grade? 14, is it? 13? 13. So the church was in deep stillness and silence for those few minutes. And then I went into the school, Leonardo and I went in, and we spent the morning with several of the classes. And the first class we went into, I think, was 2nd grade, I seem to remember, and they were all writing in their journals what meditation had meant to them, or what they thought meditation was like. And we listened to them read out these really quite brilliant pieces of theological wisdom expressed in very simple and direct language. And we're going to get them transcribed or get them sent to us, so we'll be able to put them up on our website, because they tell you much more about meditation than I can. And anyway, I was, and then we meditated with each class. And they, as all children do, if they're introduced to it properly, will take to meditation naturally, very happily, beautifully, and enjoyably. They like it. And we meditated for 1 minute per year of their age. So with this group, we'll be putting it up a little bit. We'll take an average. Okay. The average will be 25 or 30 minutes. The normal rule is 1 minute per year of their age. Sometimes I say it's up to the age of 99, and then you reset back to 1. Anyway, that was as the visit to the prison, visiting a school and meditating with children in that way is similarly, strangely, you couldn't think of more opposite ends of the spectrum of human life, but mysteriously and yet very significantly, both of those experiences was for me a manifestation of the kingdom of God that is within us and among us. And the mystery of that is what has brought us here together for this week, and to reflect on together, but more importantly, to practice together. So what has brought us here? Each of us could give our own answer to that. Perhaps we might give a slightly different answer at different stages of the cruise that we're on. If we had time, we could listen to each other's story and reason for coming here, but that would take a whole week, so we have to take it in silence. Let me recall for you a passage from the beginning of the Gospel of John that may help you to articulate your answer to that question, at least personally for yourselves. It's the first chapter of John where Jesus makes his first appearance and says his first words. John the Baptist is standing with two of his disciples when Jesus passes by. John sees Jesus. Every one of these phrases is theologically significant. John sees Jesus, and he points to the disciples, he points to Jesus and says to the disciples, "There is the Lamb of God." The two disciples follow Jesus. Jesus turns and sees them following him. And he asks them, "What are you looking for?" And they reply, "Teacher, where are you staying?" He says, "Come and see." They go and spend the rest of the day with him. It was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The key question there is the first words of Jesus are a question, and the key question here is, what are you looking for? And their response is another question, the disciples' question, where are you staying? And the word that St. John uses or is translated as staying is also the same word that he uses at the end of the Gospel in the farewell discourses, when Jesus is speaking to the disciples about his relationship with the Father, and his Father staying in him or dwelling in him, and he dwelling or staying in the Father. So it's a word that in St. John's vocabulary is a word of immense meaning and significance and sacredness. But at this point at the beginning of the Gospel, it just seems to mean, well, the disciples think that it means, what's your address? And Jesus' response to this question is not information, doesn't give them his business card, it is an invitation. Come and see. And this is the dynamic of the encounter with Jesus on their way. And the crucial moment of that relationship, perhaps in terms of our own Christian identity or our own spiritual journey, is where Jesus turns and sees them following him. In other words, they're no longer following him blindly. We all had John the Baptist in our lives, presumably, who told us, that's Jesus, that's the Lamb of God. We don't know what Lamb of God meant, but we followed, we kept the rules, we went to church, we began to acquire a Christian identity or Christian practices. Perhaps later in life we questioned that identity. Maybe we're still questioning it, we don't know really what it means. Perhaps we abandoned it altogether and went off in search of some other kind of experience because we felt that was where we were called. In any case, the point here is really that at this moment, Jesus turns and sees them following him. And what happens when you have eye contact with someone? Big difference, isn't there? From looking at the back of their head, or talking to them but not looking in their eyes. When there is eye contact, there is contact. There is spiritual contact. There is relationship. There is a sense that you are being known, and that you can know that you are known, and know that you are knowing the person who's knowing you. There's a mutual knowledge, mutual love even beginning. If we could look deeply into the eyes of any person, I think for long enough, I think we would find that we were in love. Because that is the reality within each one of us. So, the disciples see that they are seen, they know that they are known, and they begin their relationship, their journey. They accept the invitation, they travel, or they go with him to see where he's staying. They spend the rest of the day, let's say the rest of their lives with him. And it was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which was tea time in some cultures. But it was also, in the time of the early church, a time of prayer, because they punctuated the day into times of prayer, just as we will during the retreat, as we do in monastic life or in many forms of religious life. We stop what we're doing, the physical, manual work that we're doing, or the intellectual work that we're doing, and we stop for a period of time to pray, and then, like the Muslims who do this 5 times a day, we get up and go back to our job, driving the taxi or running the country or whatever it is we're doing. So what are we looking for? If we take that question of Jesus as a way to begin this time together, maybe this evening, after we finish this session, and you go back to your rooms or go for a walk, that might be the question you listen to. What are you looking for? What has brought you here? Well, I hope that one answer to that question for each of us is to deepen our contemplative experience. There may be some mystics among us, but probably not, hopefully not. The word contemplative is much more relevant to us than mystical, although I'll use the word mystical sometimes because it's a good word and has a meaning within our tradition. The contemplative experience is what all of us are called to. We are each of us, by the very way we are constructed, by the very human nature of our being, called into contemplation. The Christian mystical tradition, or contemplative tradition, even says that that is the goal of life. That is the meaning of existence. To come to this vision of God, this union with God, which is the flowering of the contemplative experience. And also, the same tradition tells us that that is the end product of all prayer. All forms of prayer are designed to bring us into contemplation. In the Catholic Church's document on the liturgy in the Second Council, Vatican Council, it says that the purpose of the liturgy is to develop a contemplative orientation in the people of God. So that's actually why we go to church, believe it or not, is to become more contemplative in our daily lives. Orientation means the way we live our lives, not just at specific moments, but continuously. So I hope that it would be right to say that one of the answers to the question, what are you looking for, is a deepening of our contemplative experience. Perhaps, therefore, a better understanding of what we mean by contemplation. And it's in the light of this experience of contemplation that the title of the retreat, I hope, makes sense, or will make sense. That our relationship with God, our understanding of God, our experience of God is transfigured, transformed in contemplation. And so our whole use of the word God undergoes a radical change. We will lose some aspects of God that we thought were real characteristics of God, but we will gain in their place a much more direct and personal experience of the true God, of the living God. So what do we mean by contemplative? Thomas Aquinas said that contemplation is the simple enjoyment of the truth. Think of those children meditating in St. Teresa's school yesterday morning. Simple, enjoyable, and truthful. And really those three terms quite nicely describe what we think of as a happy child, or as a balanced child, a child that is loved, a child that is cared for. Should be simple, should have a great capacity for enjoyment, fun and delight, and also a child is naturally truthful. That's why when you ask them a question, you're really eager to hear their answer, because you know you're going to get a truthful answer. If you ask them what meditation is, they'll tell you very, very directly and truthfully. So the simple enjoyment of the truth. One of the stories of the New Testament that shows us that contemplation is part of the Christian life, and indeed central to the whole Christian life, not just a specialized activity for, experts or graduates in schools of spirituality, or unusual types of people who can't make it in the world and become contemplatives instead, although that is also the case. But this is that contemplation is inherent in the Christian vocation, indeed in the human vocation. But the Christian understands the human vocation in a particular way. And the story in the Gospel that shows us this very clearly is, of course, the story of Martha and Mary. Maybe we could just replay that at the beginning of the retreat as well, because that can also give you something to ponder and chew over in the silence. Jesus is on his way to Jerusalem in the Gospel of Luke when he stops at the house of Martha and Mary, two friends, two sisters of his friend Lazarus. Martha comes out of the house to greet him. Mary sits at his feet and stays there listening to his words. So we see an important difference in their personalities, one more proactive and organizational, and one more contemplative, you might say, or more introverted. And yet, is the story just about two personality types? No, it takes us to a much deeper spiritual place. There's a psychological story here, but there is a much deeper spiritual story. Martha becomes distracted by her many tasks. She comes into the room where Jesus is speaking, and apparently in some anger and distress, she displaces her anger onto Jesus, and she says, "Lord, don't you see that I'm doing all this work by myself? Tell my sister to give me a hand." It's I think, a situation we can all identify with at times. You feel you're overwhelmed, you've taken on something, and then it seems as if everybody's left you to carry the can by yourself, and the people who said they were going to help you have disappeared, or they're watching TV, or they've gone away for the weekend, and you feel anxious, you feel angry, you feel sad, you feel abandoned, and as the pressure of work or responsibility accumulates and intensifies, what happens? You begin to show all the classic symptoms of stress. And that's exactly what Martha is showing here. And we know stress very well in our lifestyle. And we also know the consequences of living in stress. Physical illness and mental illness inevitably follow from extended periods of intense stress. So how does Jesus respond to this stressed out Martha? He simply says to her, Martha, Martha. He repeats her name. He calls her back to herself. She's lost herself. She doesn't like herself at the moment. Whenever you're doing something that you don't like yourself for doing, or for saying, that's what's happened. You've got out of sync with yourself. You're separated, alienated from yourself. And to be restored to yourself is the first step in recovering your balance. And that may often happen through a friend, or through a counselor, or through your family, or through some healthy set of relationships. A healthy relationship can bring you back to yourself quite quickly. If you don't have any healthy relationships, well, you just go more and more into outer space. And this alienation from yourself, and this even self-hatred, usually the cause of some terrible crimes, and violent crimes, it just gets greater and greater till you snap. So Jesus, who has a healthy relationship with everybody, Jesus recalls Martha to herself. Martha, Martha, you are worrying and being anxious about so many things. It diagnoses her stress. You're fragmented, you're scattered, you're all over the place. But only one thing is necessary, he says. Only one thing is necessary. That might be your koan for the week. What is the one thing necessary? And you might like to see during the week how your mindful experience helps you to understand that saying of Jesus. What I mean is, during the week as you get into the retreat, hopefully you will find yourself becoming more centered and letting go of some of the busyness and the agitation of your ordinary lives. And I would encourage you to put that to one side as humanly as possible. Don't bring the stuff of your daily anxieties and worries and plans, or the things that you've been thinking about for the last weeks or months. Let that go to one side. Don't use this time specifically as a time for problem solving. You'll actually probably solve the problems much better by leaving them to one side and picking them up in a few days. And if you can do that, and maybe it takes you a little time to do it, but as you do that, you'll find that a bigger space opens up for you. That's the space of the retreat. And the time in which you are occupying that space will become spiritual time. Kairos rather than chronos moments. Rather than just looking at your watch and saying, what have I got to do next? You'll see time as a kind of a series of converging moments. In fact, a continuously converging moment in which you're you and the Spirit, and you and the world, and you and other people, and all of that means you and God, are converging in this kairos moment, this destined moment. It's the word kairos, two words for time in Greek: chronos, which is clock time, chronological time, and kairos, which is this spiritual time, if you like. So as you can let go of chronos time and don't get, try to be on time for the meditations and the talks, but and the meals, of course. But otherwise, unhook as much as you can from our chronological obsession. Even go some time of the day without wearing a watch, if you do wear a watch. And as you can detach from that chronological experience of time, which is really a mental set of habits, that's all. Time is really just a mental state or mental concept. You will begin to experience another kind of time, another way of being in space and time, and things will become more significant to you. Simple things you'll notice as you're walking in the grounds, or as you're having lunch, or as you're sitting in this room, or whatever you're doing. You will be mindful, you will be aware, and your senses will become a little more sensitive and observant. And something you might like to do when some of those moments occur to you is to write a little poem. And the kind of poem I would recommend is a form of Japanese poetry called the haiku. And it's a 3-line poem. This is the classical formula, 3 lines, and it's not a pious or devotional statement. It's like a snapshot that you take with your camera. Oh, that's a really good shot, and it's not a shot of a celebrity or a boring shot of a group photo. It's a picture that you were present for, and maybe some incident or some gesture or something you saw in the street or something in a beautiful thing in the garden or whatever it might be, and you capture it on your camera. So in this form of poetry, you capture it in a few words. Traditionally, I think it was 17 syllables, or was it 19 syllables, I forget. But you don't have to worry too much about, is it how many? 17. You don't have to worry too much about the technical skill, but those of you who are a little bit compulsive could do that. Try to keep it to 17 syllables, but you don't have to. But do keep it to 3 lines. Make that one discipline that you follow, and keep it concrete. Concrete. It's what you saw, or what you felt, or what you smelt, what you heard, or a combination of those senses. And if you were to describe it coldly, it might sound very insignificant, but the way you perceived it in that state of mind gives it real significance. So that's something you might like to do, and if you do, then you could leave them unsigned on that table over there, and other people can enjoy them. Maybe we'll read some of them out at Mass as well. So, Martha at this moment was not in the haiku mood. And we don't know exactly what Martha's reaction to Jesus' comment was, especially after he defended Mary and said, Mary has chosen the better part. It seems like a put down of Martha, but I think in the context of his teaching, it isn't a put down at all. At this point, we see Martha and Mary not just as 2 psychological types, but as the 2 halves of the human soul. contemplative and the active, like the two halves or the two hemispheres of the brain, the left and the right hemisphere. We know that these two hemispheres of the brain are characterized by quite distinct forms of consciousness and activity. The left-hand hemisphere is organizational, it's analytical and business-like and verbal and so on. And the right-hand hemisphere is more contemplative, we might say. It's more intuitive. It's more works by association rather than by analysis. And these two hemispheres of the brain, of course, work together. There are billions of little synapses taking place between them all the time. So they're meant to work together. So perhaps the point of the story of Martha and Mary is relevant to us as we move from a Martha type of life into a Mary type of life, but we're the same person. Father Bernie was definitely Martha half an hour ago, as he gave us all the information, the organization, and definitely a Martha type. And he's moving into the retreat and is showing that the same person it can be a contemplative. So that's true of all of us. Each of us has to find that balance, that integration, that harmony, and most of us are out of balance to some degree, sometimes to a big degree, and therefore we need to come on a retreat, or we need to meditate twice a day, or we need to do both occasionally, or we need to meditate a few more times than twice a day, in order to rebalance or take the balance to a deeper level and deeper integration. So let me end by just zooming in for a moment on what Mary is doing as she's sitting at the feet of the Lord, listening to his words and staying there, as St. Luke tells us. So these are the three qualities that she's manifesting. She's sitting, she's staying, and she's listening. When you're sitting, you're halfway between standing and lying down. When you're standing, you don't stand, well, none of us usually like to stand for too long, because it can be tiring, but on the other hand, we stand when we're about to walk, or we stand when we are, about to do something, or take charge of something. And but when we're lying down, we are relaxing. We'll all be lying down in a few hours and going to sleep. I don't think many of us will be sleeping standing up. Some of you may be sleeping in the chair at the moment, but normally we sit because in this posture we can be relaxed and alert at the same time. Actually, it was St. Augustine who first, as far as I know, said that about the sitting as the natural posture for prayer, because it's halfway between standing and lying down. So Mary is sitting. So she's alert, but she's not doing anything. But she is doing something. Not that Martha can see or understand at that moment, but what is she doing? Well, first of all, she's staying there. So she's still. She's not running around. She's staying in one place. She's staying in the moment. Well, we're doing that on the retreat. We're staying here. We're not imprisoned, but we're staying here. And we're even freer, we're certainly freer than the prisoners, and we're freer than the children, who wouldn't be allowed out. So we're perfectly free, but this is our choice, to stay here. And then she's listening. And to listen, you have to be silent. So she's clearly silent. And her attention is not on herself or even on Martha. Hopefully, one would hope that if Martha had been in a better state of mind, she wouldn't have gone to Jesus and complained about Mary. She would have gone to Mary and said, I need some help. Because she was so stressed out, she couldn't do that. And if Mary had received that invitation to help her, we hope she would have got up quickly and said, this is the most important thing, I've got to help my sister. But anyway, the work she was doing was distinct from the work that Martha was doing, but she is doing work. Our meditation is work. The Cloud of Unknowing in the 14th century, describing this way of meditation that we practice, speaks about it as the work. So we could say meditation is relaxing. Tomorrow I'll look a little bit at the benefits and the fruits of meditation. We can certainly say that meditation, one of the benefits of it is relaxation. But in the spiritual understanding of the work, it is, of meditation, it is a deeper and richer and more significant work than that. So let's say that Mary is doing the work of contemplation. That's how the Church has always interpreted Mary in the story. And Jesus' defense of Mary has been the defense of the contemplative life in the Church. First of all, she's silent, she doesn't speak. Maybe she has nothing to say. She's listening. She doesn't defend herself against Martha. She's connected with Jesus. Her silence is not only physical, but it is interior. If she's listening, she's doing the work of silence, and she must be letting go of thoughts, plans, worries, imagination. And what is she listening to in this state? She's listening to the truth. She is absorbing and breathing the truth. She's in the truth. She's truthful. Well, all of this can be said about our work of meditation. When we meditate, we're not planning what we're going to be doing, we're not analyzing what we did, and we're not daydreaming about what we might be doing. We are not justifying ourselves, even to God. That's a major thing that we have to learn in meditation, in our relationship to God, and why we have to let go of God in some ways in order to find the true God. That we're not justifying ourselves to God, we're not playing any roles or acting out any script to God. God is not watching us in that way. Remember, Jesus turns and sees them following him, but he's in relationship to them. He's eye contact with them. He's not just looking at them and judging them. That's how we often imagine God watching us, like a security camera. So, this is the first thing that Mary is doing. She's being silent. And, as I said, she's being still. That means her mind is in one place, not only her body. Here and now, in the present moment. And to be in the present moment, to find the present moment, we have to let go of the past and the chronological present, the ticking clock, and the future. That's the work of meditation again. You could say that in a way what we're letting go of when we enter into stillness is desire. Whether it's a desire for a cup of coffee, or a desire for success, or a desire for emotional satisfaction, or a desire for knowledge, or a desire for status, or a desire for recognition, whatever it is we're letting go of, It's all forms of desire, so that we can become connected to our deepest desire and discover, in fact, what that deepest desire really is. And in that stillness, then, we find contentment and peace. And Mary, at this moment, is like those children at St. Teresa's. Very simple. Not dramatizing herself, not playing roles or games, not analyzing, not evaluating, not ticking the boxes, not doing all the things that in our culture we have been trained to do. And what is she finding? She's finding union and wholeness. So these three qualities that Mary is practicing, we could call the qualities of silence, stillness, and simplicity. And they are the qualities of contemplation that we practice in the work of meditation. So let me say a few words about how we meditate, and then we can have our first meditation, and maybe just have a few moments for some questions about the meditation if anybody has them. Just before we get into the practice of meditation, let me just say, as far as the timetable is concerned, the first meditation in the morning is at 7, and we won't have any introduction or conclusion to that except this little bell that the children loved so much yesterday. And when I asked them if they had any questions, they said, yes, can I ring the bell? You're very good, I'll let you ring the bell. So the first meditation is, we'll come in here at 7, and I would ask you to be on time, because that's a very special moment, that first meditation. If you come in late, then you obviously disturb others. If you do come a bit late, and you see the door is closed, you can still join in the meditation, but meditate outside on one of the chairs in the hall. And then between 7, actually we're a little, it's every few minutes either way, but after the meditation, we'll have a walking meditation for those who would like it. If it's nice outside, we'll go outside. If not, we can maybe do it, we'll do it indoors anyway. We'll work out some way of doing it indoors. And I'll explain, tomorrow morning, I'll explain briefly what the walking meditation or mindful walking really means. That's maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And then we'll come back, and you don't have to do that. You can go to the bathroom, or you can go for a walk outside, or you can do your own exercises if you like. Then we'll come back here for the second meditation, which we will introduce with some 2 short readings and a reading after the meditation. And then I think the rest is clear enough. Any more questions about the timetable? No. Okay.
Yes? I think it would be very easy if you do a walking meditation here. Say if the seats down there at that wing and where I'm sitting were kind of pulled away, then you have a pretty clear loop and following back there. So
yes, we could maybe do it in the hall and go out into the hall and back.
And that's another way of opening up the space even more.
Yeah. If we do it outside, we can be a little more loose about it. But there are different ways you can do the walking meditation. One is in single file, which is good for the ego, because you have to follow someone, and you have to adjust to their speed. And you find out a lot about your state of mind quite quickly doing that. And another way of doing it is we walk in the same direction, but not in single file, but maybe in different lanes, but stay in the same direction. And that's also very, it gives you a sense of connection. Either way, it's about doing something very simple and down to earth, walking, but doing it with total attention, so that your mind is not saying to yourself, where am I going? Why aren't I going there more quickly? You're just concentrating on the act itself. So it's a good preparation for meditation, and it's also a good instruction about meditation. So people often find that they are saying the mantra as they walk in rhythm with their... Important thing with the walking, in whichever way we happen to do it, is to keep walking. And however slowly, but keep a rhythm. So don't walk too slowly, because you may be creating a bottleneck behind you, and great waves of anger may start to go. So keep walking, and just, part of the mindfulness is to be mindful of how you are spaced in relation to other people before and behind you. So the mindfulness is not selfish mindfulness just on your footsteps, although that's where the main attention goes, but there should be an ambient mindfulness of the group that you're with. Anyway, we can play that by ear tomorrow. Okay, so let me remind some of you of the way of meditation and refresh your memory for others, and maybe even for some of you, introduce you to the way of meditation that we teach. We meditate in a tradition that comes to us. I received it from John Main, my own teacher, and the founder of our community. He himself recognized it and recovered it, as it were, from the teachings of the early Christian monks of the 3rd and 4th centuries. And the most important characteristic of this way of meditation, as he emphasized throughout his life, was simplicity. It's not complicated, it's simple. Doesn't mean to say it's easy, but it is simple. We sit down, we sit still, like Mary. We close our eyes lightly. The basic rule of posture is simply to sit with your back straight, which will help you to stay awake and be alert. And then we close our eyes lightly, and then silently, interiorly, in mind and heart, we begin to recite, to repeat a single word or short phrase. We could call this a prayer word, a sacred word, a mantra. And we repeat this word faithfully. That means we keep coming back to it, however many times we get distracted. And we repeat it gently. We're not using a lot of ego force to say it. And we say it attentively. That means we are listening to the word as we say it. We give it our wholehearted attention. And we are saying it simply. We're not analyzing or dissecting our experience, or wondering, am I doing it right, or what am I going to get out of this, or how quickly is this going to make something happen? So we let go of all of that kind of complex self-analysis. I'm not saying you can erase all of those thoughts or distractions, but you can take your attention off them. And that's what the mantra is for. It is to take your attention off your thoughts. Meditation is not what you think. The desert teachers of the 3rd and 4th centuries put it very simply. Prayer is the laying aside of thoughts. Prayer is laying aside your thoughts. All thoughts, including good thoughts. So we're not trying to replace bad thoughts with good thoughts, the letting go of all thoughts. The result of that is that actually your thinking will become clearer and you'll have nicer thoughts. But at the time of the meditation, we're not trying to think of anything. But I'm not saying that we're trying not to think, because you can't just turn off your thoughts like you turn off a tap. But we can take the attention off our thoughts. And we can do that with the mantra. That's why we say the word. That's why we give our full attention to the word. That's the discipline of the meditation that we practice. So choosing the word you say is important, because you stay with the same word all the way through the meditation, and also each meditation from day to day. And this will help the word to take root in your heart. You could take the name Jesus, for example, a very ancient Christian mantra. Or you could take the word Abba, a word that Jesus made sacred. The word I would recommend is the word Maranatha. Maranatha is the oldest Christian prayer. It's in the language that Jesus spoke, Aramaic. It means, "Come, Lord." Remember, we're not thinking about the meaning of it as we say it. And St. Paul ends the first letter to the Corinthians with this word. So in many ways it's a beautiful Christian mantra. If you choose that word, say it as 4 syllables, Ma-ra-na-tha. Ma-ra-na-tha. Articulate the word clearly in your mind and heart, and listen to the word as you say it. I would suggest you don't visualize it, but just listen to it as you say it. And say it with attention. Listen to it as you say it. And use as little effort as possible, but enough effort to actually do the work. So you're not thinking about saying it, you're saying it. And as you say it, you are saying it wholeheartedly, with full attention. That's pure prayer. So during the meditation, try and sit as still as you can, because the stillness of body will help you to come to a stillness of mind. Try and sit as quietly as you can, and that means physically quietly. So people sometimes ask what's the difference between Buddhist and Christian meditation, and one valid answer to that is Buddhists don't cough as much as Christians. And the reason for that is not the grace of the Buddha, but it is the fact that they're trained better than we are to see silence as really important. And we would say that the silence is sacred. There is nothing so much like God as silence, as a saying we will be exploring later in the week. So we Christians really do need to get our act together a little bit and realize that the silence that we share is sacred silence, and we all benefit from being in it. Actually, I have a little cough at the moment, so if you do have to cough, just try to cough mindfully.